I'm just telling the subscript array. Somebody is waiting in the lobby. Let me allow. Okay. So coming to the after defining the marks in arrays, this subscript index notation is borrowed from mathematics. We can say where we have to practice of writing marks 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay, this in this way we describe an array. Like whenever it will come in exam, what you will do, you will describe, you just write the definition of array. One example you can give, like list of employee, like for example, list of employees in an organization. Okay, list of products and their costs told by a store, test scores of a class of students, anything you can define in an array. But you have to define in this manner only how you are defining. It depends on how we are defining the type of array. One dimensional, two dimensional, three dimensional, or multi-dimensional, we can say. Okay. So coming to the types of arrays. One dimensional array. Okay, what is a one dimensional array? List of items that can be given one variable name using only one subscript. Only one subscript is used in a one dimensional array. And such variables is called as one dimensional array. Okay. int marks 4. This, for example, one example you can give int marks 4. Anything you can give like that. Okay. So here marks are the name of the array, which is capable of storing 4 integer values. If you'll give here 10, int marks 10, it will store 10 integer values. Okay. The first value will be stored in marks 0. The second value will be stored in marks 1. The same way we have seen here, na? In the same way, this example we have seen, same way we are storing the values like int marks 4. So 1, 2, 3, these all are array of marks 4. Till 4 they are taking. So till 3 values we have to consider. In this way, the same way they are explaining here, the first value will be stored in marks 0, second will be stored in marks 1, and so on. Okay. And the last value will be in the marks 3. So coming to the next process, we'll coming here down. Here again, declaration of one dimensional array. Here in general syntax of array declaration, we can say like, see, after whenever you write something, whenever you define an array or anything in like in module 1, module 2, you're defining, we have seen if else statement, decision making when you write an exam, you have to write a syntax also, an example also, flowchart you have to draw there. But flowchart is not required in array. Okay. In array, flowchart is not required. We have to write a syntax example. That's all. Okay. But if it is in lab, like what you are doing in your lab experiments, if the flowchart is required, then we have to draw flowchart there in lab. But after module 3, flowchart will not appear. It is only the importance of flowchart is still module 1 and 2. Okay. Till if looping and if else statement and all. That importance will be till module 2. So from flowchart you can draw in array also, but in theoretical part, like when you will write in exam answers, in that is not required. But in lab you can draw. Okay. If you want to practice, you can draw. Okay. Who is coming very late? 50 people are there now. Okay. So now we can say the declaration of one dimensional array is syntax, data type, array name, array size, integer marks 4. Again, the same thing we have taken here, marks 4, that is uh, number of values that are stored is still 4. Float temperature 5. Now here data type, array name, array size will be there, semicolon. Now here declaration specifies the data type of an array. Okay. And its name and size. Whatever you are declaring, it will specify the data type of an array, its name and size. Okay. So again, here we are taking this is the syntax of one dimensional array. Initialization of one dimensional array is after array is declared, next is storing values into an array. Whatever values you are storing, that is an initialization. That's known as initialization. There are two types of array initialization. First is compile time initialization and runtime initialization. Okay. So in compile time initialization, what we are doing, we are assigning the values to the array using during declaration. Whatever you want to declare at that time, we need a compile time initialization. Okay. So again, there are 4 types of compile time initialization. In one dimensional array we are discussing now. Okay. We are in one dimensional array only. You can see how we are describing one-dimensional array. Four methods are there in compile time initialization. Okay, and let me see about runtime. How many are there? In runtime initialization, we are not having any four types. We only we have to define only runtime only. Okay. So coming to the initialization with size. Initialization without size, partial initialization, initializing with all values 0. With size, we can say we can initialize values to all the elements of the array. Like again, we are having syntax in this. One definition, again one syntax inside that. You have to define accordingly one dimensional array. Syntax of initialization with size. Data type, array name, array size, okay, list of values. Again, 90 marks for values you can give. Four values you have to give. This you have to keep in mind. If you are using four, if you are using five, or if you are using 10, 10 values you have to write here. If you are using four and you're writing 10 values, then it will become wrong. So whenever you're using the 90 marks 4, you have to put 95, 35. In this way, any value you can put. Semicolon. Float temperature 3. They are giving here what? Temperature value as 3. Only 3 they are using, not 5. So we have to define only 3 values here. So this is finished. This is initialization with size. Now initialization without size. So we don't need any size of array, okay, to provide to use that initialization value to begin itself. Whatever values you want to begin, we don't want any size of the array. Like here, we don't want to put any like 4, 3, and we are not putting here. We are just not just putting the values according to us, like data type array name, then blank. You can see here, this portion is blank. This is the initialization of arrays without size. You can see here, this portion is blank. Okay. So in this way, the brackets you have to put blank and list of values. This is the syntax of with initialization without size. INT marks again 95, 35, 61, any value you can put. Here they are using 4, but they are not putting here 4 values. Here they are using 5. 5 values they are putting in temperature, floor temperature, but this is blank because it is we are not using any, we are not specifying any size of array. So this is initialization without size. So in this way, one more syntax and one more example you have to give. After that, partial initialization. What we have to do in partial initialization? We did not specify all the elements in the array. Unspecified elements will be initialized to 0. Okay. So we don't want to specify all the elements. So here again, it is giving 5. We are not using all the elements here as they are telling here. So int marks 5, but they are putting only 3 values here. Because here, why they are putting 3 values here? You can see because they're saying marks 3 and 4 are initialized to 0. So this is a partial initialization. That because they are 0, that's why we are not putting that values here. Only 3 values we are considering in int marks 5. So whenever this will come, you will understand that this is a partial initialization of one dimensional array. Now coming to initializing all the elements 0. So it is very simple. If you are putting all the elements 0, then we have to store 0 to all the elements in the array. Like int marks 4, 0. Nothing we will put. No values we will give. So this is initializing all the elements 0. So now coming to the runtime initialization after compile time initialization of an array. Runtime initialization is storing values in an array when program is running or executing. That is known as runtime initialization. So, okay, coming to printf, one example they are giving here, enter 4 marks, I 0, I is less than 4, I plus plus, scanf, %d, and marks I. One example they are giving for runtime initialization. We have to store values in an array. Okay, so here they are using the array sign here. You can see here any example you can give for runtime initialization or one dimensional array. Also, you can give any one example. In this way, you have to define the one dimensional array. See, you can see here marks I. This is the one dimensional array. Okay. This way, you have to define one dimensional array. Any program you can write from if you are using header files, you can put header files also. They have not put a header file. They have just given the example. In this way, we can define one-dimensional array. So this is all the story what they're giving here. This all the story that int marks here 3 and 4 are initialized to 0. Here whatever values we are putting for 3 and 4 for one dimensional are initialized to 0. 3 and 4. Okay. So they are not using that value here. This is all the story of one-dimensional array. Coming to the two-dimensional array. Okay, coming to two-dimensional array is a list of items can be given one variable name using two subscripts, and such a variable is called. Okay, first we are using one subscript, that is a one-dimensional array. If we are using two subscripts, it is a two-dimensional array. Okay, so again it will consist of both rows and columns. Example matrix. Any matrix you can use for two-dimensional array. You have seen also earlier. If some people have seen. In this way we represent two-dimensional array. Here a general syntax of array declaration along with examples you can see. Data type, array name, row size, column size. Okay, you can see here it's a two-dimensional array. They are describing in syntax also. You can see very easily. It's a two-dimensional array. Okay. So in this way, you have to define a syntax of two-dimensional array. Whenever you write about two-dimensional array in exam, you have to define in the same way. One example you can give that like int marks for any value you can put int marks 4 they are putting here. Float city temperature temper like not temperature, it is temper they are using 3. Again it is temperature only I think, but they are putting a short form. Declaration definition specify the data type of an array, its name and size. The same thing is there, but the way is that in place of one dimensional, it is two dimensional now. Now again the initialization again of two dimensional array, same as one dimensional array, same value, same process we have to use, compile time and run time. So here after array is declared, next is storing values into an array is called initialization. Okay, there are two types again. For two dimensional, what we have to do in compile time, for two dimensional, we have to assign values to the array during declaration. Again, it's the same. It is called a compile time initialization. Like here, again syntax you can see list of values they are putting the same as one dimensional. You can see there is only one. You are able to see 90 marks 4 is there. So only 4 values they are putting. But here two values we have to put for 3 and as well as 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These are all combined together. Okay. These are the two-dimensional array representation after syntax. Float city again 2 2. Again the values they are using. 2 values they are using. Okay. So two values here 29, 30.7, 29.5. Then again two values 35.6, 45.7. Okay. These are the two values. So in the above example, we are storing values in marks array and temperature array. Okay. Respectively.